that. Or repeat the question. Okay, that's fine. Good morning. I'm Greg Reeves with Mosaic Development Partners. John is also with Mosaic. We are here to give an update, really, of the master planning process and Downtown Dover Partnership and the partnership that we've had with you. We're just going to go through a series of slides to kind of tell you where we were, where we are, and where we're going. So we'd like to do it briefly and then open up opportunities for you to ask questions or clarification or offer some ideas, but this is an iterative process. We're excited to be a part of it. We're excited to be here today. Glad we got some decent weather today. That always helps. And so without further ado, I'd like to start with my colleague John and have John just lead us off in the beginning. Then I'll come in behind him. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'll echo Greg's sentiment. It is a pleasure to be here. It really is. Greg and I have done work in Delaware for many years, off and on, and so it's great to be back. So our team, it's one of the things that's important to understand is the team is more than just Mosaic. Mosaic has a really good track record of doing transformative development, but when we looked at Dover, we said we need more. So our teammates include Bernardin Architecture, which not only are a full service architecture team, but they've been a major part of some really significant turnarounds in cities. If you've ever been to Allentown, Pennsylvania, you know, it's not the Allentown from the old songs and stuff. It really is a beautiful downtown area. So their expertise. Kimley Horn is really good at being able to analyze how do people move in and out of a city and how should they move around a city. And transportation, you know, things such as should there be a one-way street or should we open up to more restaurants and things of that nature. And then eConsult Solutions is probably the leader in this region and really looking at market data and analyzing what's going on and what is the potential. So when we come up with an idea, it's great to come up with an idea for a really pretty, beautiful site, but does it work financially? If we build it, will they come, so to speak? Some of the work that we've completed so far is we had a great kickoff meeting that we started over there that DDP hosted for us at the Schwartz Center. You know, we really manage the whole team in bringing all of this together for you. And we're the ones that are responsible for making sure that we produce an exciting plan, but also a plan which is going to be transformative. We also led many stakeholder engagement meetings, which we'll talk a little bit more about in just a second. Incredibly helpful. Incredibly helpful. We learned so much from those. And then also really started building the foundation of the plan. Kimley Horn, as well as eConsult and Bernardin, really took a look at all of the existing conditions and existing plans that were given to us. DDP provided us with all of the strategic plans which have been done in the last several years. Very helpful. They're also looking at, you know, what is the mobility network? How do people get around? Had a very good meeting with Colonial Parking, gaining information, and really starting to look at how do we make this work from a transportation standpoint for moving people around. eConsult is really, they started looking at financing tools. What is the way we pay for this? We can have a great plan, but if we don't have the tools to pay for it, it's just a plan that'll sit on a shelf. So they're looking at the potential benefits. Bernardin, you're going to see a lot of their work in the next few slides, where they really started imagining what does this look like and what could it be. So you see, this is just a list of some of the stakeholders that we've engaged already. It really has been great. John's been at the meetings. A whole lot of, almost most of you here have been at the meetings on Zoom or even in person for a couple of them. But you see all of the different groups that have been engaged there. It really is, we're so thankful to DDP for being able to connect us with all of these groups. You know, Interfaith, Dover Police, you name it. You know, if they're around and they want to meet and they're interested in helping to turn around downtown Dover, we'll meet with them. Whether it's Zoom or in person, we're fine either way. Some of our initial impressions that we received from these meetings include...
If you can step back, I wanted to add that the survey data is really important to us. And one of the things that we think about, and that's come up, is how many people have we spoken with? Who are we talking with? If you look at the size of the downtown Dover population, we have far exceeded what a normal survey population sample size would be. So you're somewhere in the typical, if you get 5 to 16% of survey data from your sample size, you would be really thrilled that you reached that. We're well over the 15% range here, so we're getting double the number of people that we would normally survey just to understand what the dynamics are in a particular community. I'll give you an example. We're redeveloping the Philadelphia Navy Yard, and that is a $5 billion project. We've surveyed the same number of people for the Philadelphia Navy Yard that we have for the downtown Dover district. So just to give you perspective, that we are really, really deep in terms of getting good information from folks here about perceptions, views, values of the community without having to survey everybody in the neighborhoods.
Thanks, Greg. And then some of the impressions that we've gotten, I'm sure you guys know these because we got them from all of you, which is really, you know, can we bring in more amenities and can we bring in more people? How do we make that attractive? Things such as bike paths. Can we activate the river development? Certainly many folks would like more restaurants, bars, you know, breweries, things of that nature to come into downtown. And when you think about what are the businesses concerned about, same as the people. You know, they like to see more safety. They definitely want to see more foot traffic. And then also in terms of how do the businesses turn those vacant spots around? What are some of the challenges there with the codes that have to be done and the buildings to be upgraded? So we're really gathering all of that information and looking at the physical conditions as well as the amenities and how do we bring that all together? You know, the classic line is if you build it, what they will come, but which do you build first? You know, the amenities don't want to come if there's not people there, and people don't want to come unless there's amenities. So we have to figure out from a timing standpoint, how do we bring in good new restaurants, good new folks to come in there while at the same time bringing people?
So just to, and I'll just add on what you say. One of the things we think about is how do we take the perceptions and the community dynamics and think about the infrastructure that supports that perception? What do we need to do to augment change? And here we're looking at change. One of the things that came up really on were perceptions of safety. And that came throughout, I think, almost all of our calls, whether they were real or imagined. But the fact that so many people mentioned it, it makes it real, even if it's not perceived to be real by every audience. We did speak with the police department, and they gave us some really valuable statistics about what's actually happening on the ground. It appears that most of what's happening here is vagrancy. That's the biggest problem, but that's a real problem from a standpoint of a business owner, from the standpoint of people who are fearful of the unknown. I mean, we've seen situations, if you're watching television and people act erratically or behave in a certain way, you don't know how they're going to interact with you in any given moment, and it creates a level of fear that makes people think, well, I don't know what this person's going to do. I don't know what the set of circumstances are. So we take that really literally in the dialogue, even though statistics in terms of, say, violent crime may not bear out, right? So we still have to view it as a safety issue in the way that we address this from the standpoint of the person who's looking at that. We also are looking at real conditions around zoning. A lot of the business owners have really been concerned about zoning code and what the code has done for them from the standpoint, I mean, these are really landlords, not just the businesses, but the landlords to get their properties to a place where their code is, where the buildings are up to par. So whether they're sprinklered, whether they're ADA compliant, whether they work to today's standards. That's something that we are looking at in terms of how do we address that as a team in helping the city really think through that. Because the reality is your building will be more valuable if it's up to code. There's no question about that. We deal with this all of the time in Philadelphia. It's a very old city. We deal with very old properties. Everything that we do, we bring to code because the value proposition on the end is worth it. The question is, how do you get there? Like, what's the gap? What's the financial gap to get you there? So we're looking at maybe some financial solutions to help landlords think about how to bring it up to code rather than to dismiss fire code, right? We don't think that's the right approach, is to say, well, we don't need sprinkler systems in restaurants, because you absolutely do. so we don't want to pretend or assume that we would step back from those. We'd want to think about different ways to approach it to help landlords really get to where they want to be in the end, which is having tenants and operators in there operating safely and operating successfully at a reasonable cost. So that's kind of the way that we're approaching some of these solutions. just to give you perspective on that.
Thanks, Greg. Some more impressions. We already talked about safety, but one of the really encouraging things. One of the really encouraging things is we also spoke with our anchors, and we talked about the potential for more people coming downtown to live. And one of the things that Greg has preached over and over, and I really understand, is the fact that if you don't have more people living downtown, it's hard to achieve all of the other goals you have there, because the restaurant is not going to survive just off of the lunch menu, right? They really need folks that are going to be there at nighttime. And then at the same time, we also have some very key anchors. We have Bay Health and Delaware State and the Air Force Base and the government offices that employ lots of people or have students, lots of students. Why should they have to go to Camden or somewhere far for good housing? Can we provide the good housing at a reasonable rate right here in downtown Dover? And that will give us the population we need in order to support more restaurants and more amenities. It kind of all goes together, and more people walking around downtown improves the safety as well.
So just an example on the anchors, if you just think about the government anchor that's downtown, you have, well, pre-COVID. So let's talk pre-COVID versus post-COVID. But pre-COVID, you had 2,600 employees who are down there. Only a small percentage, less than 10% of those employees actually lived in the downtown district. And about that same percentage actually worked in government who lived downtown. So people that lived in the downtown district didn't work in the government area, and people who worked there didn't live there. And so it was kind of this reverse scenario that's going on, that there's nobody getting the benefit of either being there. And so one of the issues that we think about is how do we create that stickiness on both sides, right? And so moving out of COVID and thinking about the relationship that needs to occur with these anchors and the downtown communities, that we're going to be thinking about how real estate can play a role in bringing those two communities together. In the end, it's all about people making choices, right? But maybe we can use real estate as a vehicle to make better choices together. So.
And for now, for the current work, I will turn it over to Greg. Okay, we'll go from there.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Well,
yeah.
I can't see it. I'll go to there.
Sorry about that.
So we launched an online survey to augment the work that we've already been doing, and the response rate was actually pretty good. I think we've gotten somewhere around 200 responses in 2 weeks. That's actually outstanding. That's better than what we would expect for a population this size, right? The downtown district's about 2,000 people, a little less. So right there in the online survey, that's about 10%. Go ahead.
They can't. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. This is so awkward for me. Thank you very much. It's so nice to be here with all of you. And just right here? Okay. All right. And we have scheduled community meetings, albeit we know that we've missed some key stakeholders who we would like to have some additional in-person meetings with. We're going to schedule those. Diane and the team have been working to make sure those folks who are really important voices here are being captured in direct communication. So all stakeholders matter, but some stakeholders who we really are talking with are those that are that hold key understanding about segments of populations, whether it's housing, whether it's affordable living, whether it's job creation, whether it's government and licensing and regulatory. We need to have more in-depth conversations there to understand the dynamics of how things work. And so we just want to make sure that we capture all of those key people at the local, at the state, and at the county level to ensure that we're really getting a great cross-section. Those discussions with these groups have really opened our eyes about what's possible. We have been doing this for a while. We work in a number of different communities. We work with a cross-section of communities. I think the value here is that we also work in significant mixed income communities, which Dover is, right? They have, we're not talking about luxury, and we're not talking about poor, we're talking about mixed income, which you have the mix of both.
And so we're very adept at working in communities of color, at supporting those communities and focusing on building up communities of color, because in the past, most communities of color have been marginalized in most major cities, particularly the cities where we've worked, and even in college universities. We work with HBCUs. Del State is here, but we've worked with HBCUs in Maryland, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania. So we have a lot of understanding about how the college community can really augment and support and be an economic driver in downtown districts. And colleges in general, we just won a contract with the University of Maryland. We just won a contract with Penn. So we're working with a lot of colleges. So we do understand that market well. We are now moving into kind of these anchor discussions. So we've had initial discussions with anchors, and Bay Health is here, and Bay Health is, we consider a key anchor, but we also want to still engage discussions with Del State, not only because they're a key anchor, but also because they hold the key real estate assets right in the downtown district. And so we think that it's really important that there's full alignment. We have seen their master plan. We have had preliminary conversations with them. We expect that they will continue, and that we'll be able to come up with some ideas that will bring them in as a part of this process. Dover Air Force Base, what's interesting, I think when we go to the next slide, we'll see, Dover has always been here, right? It's been here for a long time, but it's not really contiguous to the downtown district. It is a drive away as it stands today. The other anchors basically are walkable. If we think about government, the downtown Del State downtown, that might be what we're calling it, and then Bay Health, they're all really walkable to the downtown district, but Dover is not. So we have to think about some different strategies there. I think we've already talked about this. We've had initial charrettes, but we did have a concept presentation. We scheduled a day, this was 2 weeks ago, I guess, where we were downtown. We had an open house format where we invited key stakeholders in to really see initial thinking about the downtown area. And we have a couple of slides that will show that. But what we wanted to do is at least get on paper kind of the area of influence that we were focused on for the downtown district and get people to start thinking about what we're thinking to make sure we're not missing any glaring spaces of concern for them. One of the reasons we do that is before we start drawing, I mean, you don't want to go really deep into a plan without having kind of understanding that we're all in alignment, right? We don't want to draw and then redraw and then redraw. and people say, oh, wow, what are you doing? You're so off. And so we didn't do that. We wanted to really bring the team together, wanted to show here's what our framing is. We wanted your influence on how we framed, and we brought key stakeholders in to look at that. We haven't drawn anything yet, but we do have ideas about what we think should be coming next. If you can go back still. So what we're going to do, though, is we are going to start drawing soon. We're thinking about that process now. This is kind of where the architecture and the massing starts to play a role, where we will lay that in. We still need to speak with some of the key anchors to make sure that what we're drawing is in alignment, because we plan on drawing on some of their property. So we just don't want to do that and offend them. But we do think that there are some key pieces of real estate that if we can come to an agreement about what's possible, we can really come up with some great ideas together. And we've already heard them from the folks that are in this room and beyond. We will be presenting these ideas, and it says final presentation, but as I said earlier, it is iterative. So we'll be presenting and presenting and presenting, and it is a work in progress. This is kind of how you do it. You don't want to just unveil the cake at one time. You want the cake to be an impression of people saying, yeah, I like this, but have you thought of this? Yeah, this is good, but can you move it here? And have you considered that? So it's something that is semi-baked and developed and then reviewed and then baked more and then reviewed and baked more. And when it's final, everybody, for the most part, will have seen it, right? It's not something that will be a surprise to the team here. That's the goal. We don't really want to surprise you with anything. That's not our plan. So this is just kind of mapping on what we're thinking about. You can see the dotted area for the most part, that those dots might move a little bit depending upon the group that we're talking about, but that was the original downtown area that we were considering. We were looking at what are the properties that we think we can influence more immediately, because those properties might either be controlled by the city or by the downtown partnership. And so we identified those because in our experience, it's very, you can plan a private property. You could say this property, you know, it's a 3-story home. It should be a CVS, and you can make all the plans you want, but the person that owns that doesn't care, right? So we try not to do that. We try not to influence somebody's personal property in that way. What we do is we give guidance on direction on what we think makes the most sense based on a particular location. So we're saying, let's look at these zones and let's look at it in the context of where our anchors are located. The good thing about the Delaware State piece is we do see that they have their main campus that is really not a walkable campus to the downtown district, but if you look at the annex or the downtown piece, we do see real relationship that allows that to come closer to us. We have state government, Bay Health, and again, you see Dover, which is, we don't call it an outlier, but it does create a transportation issue that we need to address in our plan. What are the best ways for people to come in and to leave in a way that is fluid? And so we think about more than cars and buses. We're thinking about multimodalities. Can you take an e-bike? Is it good to walk? Can you have a bicycle? Do we have safe trails? Are there paths that work, right? And right now, it's really not quite connected well. You know, downtown has some things that have gone right, but it stops, right? So there's no real fluid connection, and this is where Kimley Horn comes in and helps us with this thinking.
And one of the things they told us is less than 30% of the people stationed at the base have a personal transportation.
So, yeah, exactly, yeah. So you have a bunch of young people that have a per diem. They do have, and they also have a stipend for housing, and they can't go anywhere. Right? So, and these are young people that want to have fun. They don't want to sit around. They want to go out. They want to do something. So they're looking for activity. They're just over there, right? They're not over there. And so the question is, how do we get them over there, and why would they come? So that's part of the questions that we have to answer, because even today without COVID, what we're finding is there's not a compelling reason today why they would come and stay. So if you look at these circles, these are what we call kind of the 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute walking circle. And these are, we didn't create the idea. We work with a ton of architects around the country, and we talk about the walkable neighborhoods. And you want a neighborhood really that has this 15-minute walkable cycle. So within 15 minutes, you ought to be able to get to most of your staples, whether it's grocery, housing, schools. Oh, schools, sorry. The mic, I have to have the mic close. Grocery, housing, schools, etc. Those are all part of the 15-minute neighborhood that we're looking to create. We have to think about what are the key staples that are within that circle, and how do we augment them if they're not there? What should we be thinking about? So we were thinking, for example, about grocery. We do know that grocery exists on the outskirts of the downtown district. Some people could argue maybe you don't need grocery here because grocery is somewhere else. But what grocery does is it pulls people, because people have to eat. I mean, if there's one thing, we do shopping centers, and the biggest thing that any of our lenders care about is whether we have a grocer, because they know if you have a grocer, then folks will always come to that, and then they'll shop at the other places, the other stores that are around there. So the grocer is the anchor that brings people in for other things, whether it's laundry, whether it's meals, whether it's you know, stopping in a shop to get something, some other thing. But grocery is a key anchor that brings people and draws people. So we are thinking about, how do we bring grocery back downtown? Like, because it's so important, not just for grocery, but for the other uses that come as well. And so we're looking, is there a property or parcel where grocery could make sense? Now, you have the Acme site, right? That served as the downtown grocery. Well, we think potentially that could, again, there are some real opportunities there. We would think about that. We'd have to think about the size of the grocer, but having a grocer downtown will be a really key element, particularly when we augment that with densifying the downtown district. So the other thing that we talk about in this is you need a walkable community, but you need a densified community. So right now, when we think about restaurants, it takes about, for every 1,000 residents, they support about 2 restaurants or so. That's on average. So when you think about the density here of 2,000 people, you can support about 4 restaurants. That's not that many, right? So we think you might have to double the density in the downtown district. You probably need to go from 2 to 4,000, or at least 2 to 3,000 people. And that also has a positive effect on safety. So the more people that you have on the street that are living there every day, the more eyes that are on the street, the more people that are now supporting each other in a different way. And now you start to see the rippling effect of businesses changing on the ground floor. So we believe heavily that density is going to be a really supportive element to driving kind of this walkable neighborhood and to getting the other things to start working in a functional way, in the way that they should be, because people are casual shoppers. There's not a lot of destination businesses that exist. There are some, but there's not a lot. Most people are convenience shoppers today, right? Most people. Oh, go ahead, Linda.
So if I'm going to think positive and think that we're going to get a large demand generator downtown, in the traffic planning, are you planning on how to get large volumes of cars in and out of the city?
So I'm almost glad you asked that question. So you know, I have cars, but I don't like them. I think cars are the enemy of really good design, but we have to figure out a way to bring cars in and out, people for a destination like uses. So what we would do, and what we're thinking about, is thinking about where strategic parking structures should be, because we do believe that parking structures are a great solution. Surface parking is a problem for design. So if we can move from surface parking, identify locations for structured parking, locate them well, they could serve both the downtown and some destination uses. So we are looking at parking structures as a part of this strategy. The other thing we're looking at is how should trucks move in and out, because we don't want trucks to interfere with pedestrian traffic. One of the things about the roads here is that some roads are really good for cars, some roads are really bad for pedestrians, and we want roads to become better for pedestrians, because that's what should lead, right? Pedestrian life should be first before cars, and right now that's not the case with every street here. So we're asking Kimley Horn to take a hard look on what streets should be designated for cars, for bike paths, for walking paths, what streets are really better for really traffic to go in and around, and what streets are better for really solid retail where people can feel comfortable and safe shopping and being a part of the fabric of the downtown area and open space. So we're looking at all of that as a component of it. So these are just some early opportunities that we're starting to outline. I think you probably know these sites. If you don't, I'm sure you all know these sites. But we are going to be programming what we think is possible at these sites in terms of, again, the ideas that we're talking about greater density, activating the downtown, thinking about amenities, what's not here and what could be here. But again, we think that these are great sites for densification and for filling in gaps, retail gaps that we think will increase and enhance people's willingness to come downtown and spend time here, spend time and spend money. The other thing that we think about, and you look at that corner space there, is open space, because the public realm has become so much more important today than it's ever been. One of the big values and one of the things that we've seen post-COVID is, for example, we would not entertain building a restaurant ground up that doesn't have an outdoor space now. That wouldn't have been the case before COVID. But now today, people need that flexibility. Not to say there's going to be another pandemic, but in the event something happens, we need optionality for our businesses. And so now that we're thinking about it, how are we designing future spaces for our retailers so that they don't have to provide their businesses only indoors, if that's the way they're doing? How can we provide a structure or a mechanism where they can have an indoor and outdoor situation? I just got back from Spain. I was there for a few weeks traveling throughout the country. They've been doing that for hundreds of years. And so when you go there and you see the activity, it is vibrant and fluid and active. And the restaurants are inside, but nobody's inside. Everybody's outside eating. Everybody. And it's really an amazing experience, and it's something that they've planned and they've built, and it's worked for hundreds of years. We just haven't done it well here. They also don't have a lot of drive-thrus here, just so you know. I looked. They didn't have them. So here is just the zoning issue. For the most part, we think we can work with the current zoning in the districts. We do think we might want to take a look at some of the zoning. You do have industrial zoning that sits here. Again, our recommendation would be more so to move toward residential, mixed use, amenitized first floor. You notice I don't say retail first floor, I say amenitized first floor, because we also have to take into account what the Amazon effect has been. So we know that not all businesses are going to be able to work in the same way that they could have before Amazon, but now that Amazon is here, it's a real thing. So we think about what are the uses that people are really interested in coming to, but what are the other amenities that should occur on the first floor of a building that are also important to residents, fitness and health and other things. So they may not be direct pay uses, but they're still important to activate that ground floor. So we are thinking about first floor, amenitizing the first floor, not just retail on that. So zoning will support that. The other part of the zoning that we would want to at least influence is zoning and design ideas, zoning and design strategies, so we could bring some consistency in design, or at least offer that for city council as they're approving, or the planning commission as they're approving programs in the future. What are the standards that really do make sense in creating kind of this eclectic, or really building upon this already eclectic design community? There's a lot of historic buildings that are here, but then you have a lot of buildings that are really pedestrian and don't really meet kind of the same design standard that was built in the 1800s. So what we'd like to do is kind of upgrade that thinking, give some ideas about different material selection. You can still keep the storefront and do a lot with it, but one of the storefront ideas might be, even if we can't, for example, extend the sidewalks. We're big believers in having wider sidewalks. Sidewalks here aren't terrible. The trees overwhelm them, but they're not terrible. But one of the things you can do is we can think about glass garage doors that roll up and bring the outside in. So you don't have to be on the sidewalk, but you can still have that open air opportunity there. Maybe we can think about how to rethink that. They've done it in Boston. They've done it in Philadelphia. They certainly have done it in New York, and it works well. So we would like to see some of those ideas come to Dover and be a part of the fabric of the code, of new codes.
And I think, Greg, you touched slightly on one of the things we talked about is working with the local government in terms of zoning, so that you can create zones where it expedites the building of a new building or the conversion of a building, so long as it falls into what we've already discussed and agreed upon with the planning.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So it would be an incentive, essentially, for developers or for landlords that if you follow this path, your path will go quickly, right? It'll be smooth. You won't hit these hurdles, and it'll make it easier for you to do these types of things. And if you don't want to follow the path, you have to go through the same terrible process that we all go through. So which is what we're used to, right? We're used to that slow, arduous process. This is just massing. The next iteration of what we do will start to show some massing, and that just gives us a broad view of what's possible in terms of the number of, this could be residential units. So this might be 250 residential units that we can make work. It's maximum FAR of 300,000 square feet. Let's say you average, that actually could be 300 units. It's an average of 1,000 square feet per unit on average. You can imagine that could be a building with 300 units that we could now place in a particular location. That would be what we'd like to do, is show the community what's possible here, that how we can bring density down here. And maybe then the next phase would be, well, what's the incentive to do that if that's something we all agree with, right? Now, when we talk about this housing, I just must tell you, Mosaic, our company, is very committed to mixed income housing. We don't believe that we should concentrate poverty. We also don't believe we should concentrate luxury. We think we should mix incomes because the benefit of having higher income people with workforce people, with lower income people, is a benefit that tends to benefit lower income people. And so it helps build them up, because now that lower income people get to live in higher income communities, they get the benefits of that if we create an affordable base for them, right? They get the benefit of better job creation. They get the benefit of better health care. They get the benefit of better schools. So that's why we believe in that and not concentrating poverty.
And just to stress once again that this is just a zoning maximization. That's the maximum of what could be built there. It's not what we recommend. This is saying, hey, if we want to, we could go up to this height. What do you guys think? You might say, take 2 stories off, for example. But this gives the maximum.
Or 1 story. Take 1 story.
Do you have examples of where this has worked? I think the fear is, and I think we dealt with it previously selling one of the properties, is that the fear is that one will take over the other. Do you have examples of success stories where you are amassing these 2 groups of people, 2, 3 groups of people together, where it does that? I think it's a great idea, and I would support that. I think people are going to look for success stories of that happening.
Yes, we do it with all of our projects. And in fact, at the Philadelphia Navy Yard, we're breaking ground in August on 611 units. I don't know if you've heard of Corman Properties. So Corman has among the highest luxury property program in the country. They have the Corman Ave and the Corman AKA. They have this beautiful luxury building at Penn. They have one in Beverly Hills. They're opening one in Santa Clara right now with our partners. We're partnering with them on this very project, where we have 265 luxury units. We have 190 mixed income and lower income units, as low as 60 AMI, all the way up to market rate. So we're from 60 AMI to luxury, all in one community that we're building now. And we do it all the time. Mosaic does it. We have a 100-unit building that is under construction, will be done in August. It's a mixed income building. It's 70% market rate, 30% affordable. We've been doing it for years, so we're big believers in it. And what we've been able to do from that is get folks who are in the neighborhoods also to be able to get jobs at the ground floor retail level. We've been able to get them, in some cases when we haven't had union issues, get them to work and be a part of the construction component. So we've weaved them into the process in a lot of other ways too. So the answer is yes, we've been able to do it. It does take a developer, though, that wants to do it. So I can't speak for other developers. I can tell you we do it. So John, I don't know if you want to take this part.
So we've covered most of these, but I just wanted to highlight a few of the things on here. You know, we talked extensively about multimodal transportation, because when you have a finite size, you want to see how do we get more people in, and at the same time make it more enjoyable to be downtown. So that's a key focus now. Another key thing is, after we get to the next level, when we start going past the zoning maximization and getting into actual concepts, that's when eConsult comes in real heavy. And they're going to take a look at, does this work? What is the viability? First off, if you build it, will the people come? But then just as important is, how do we pay for this? You know, what type of public-private mix do we come up with in order to make this happen? Because a plan which has a bunch of nice concepts without a clear plan for how we're going to pay for it is really not that helpful. You know, we need something which is much more helpful, which takes us all the way through to completion. One of the questions we get quite often is, well, is this plan going to work? Are people going to invest in this? Because we've seen this before. We've seen this happen, and you know, someone comes up with a nice plan and nothing happens after it, you know. I mean, Greg and I have watched a similar thing at Penn's Landing in Philadelphia. It's been going on for 30 years. Every 10 years is a new Penn's Landing plan, and like one building will go up or something. So what's very key is this economic analysis, making sure that we bring together all of the different entities, public and private, that will actually fund this. And one of the keys is that you have this master plan being built by a developer who actually completes all of their projects, who knows what it takes to get it done. One of the things you may not know about Mosaic was Mosaic, when it started out, was given all the toughest projects in Philadelphia that no one else could figure out. you know, and that's an important point because it shows that that Mosaic has the experience to overcome challenges, and it's not going to just quit at a fight or not say, well, we tried and walked away from it, you know, because we had to do it. Those were the only buildings we could do. So that's really important, that economic analysis. So you say, what are we going to get out of all of this? Well, the plan is going to have, I'm sorry,
go. We also provide our own analysis from a developer standpoint. So we look at what we think is investment quality and what a developer would consider before coming into a community. So we say, oh, this is a great, it's different than architects. We love architects, but architects are not developers. And a lot of folks that are not in the business don't really know that because they design, but they don't understand the economic consequences of a particular design. We have to look at that because we have to build it. We're on the hook for the dollars on this. And so when we look at a particular project, we can tell you why this project will go or not, or what the barriers are, or what the incentives are that we need to create to incentivize a developer to come and build it, right? So we know that. We understand that inherently. So we're bringing that element along with eConsult. The other thing eConsult does is they give a broad economic benefit analysis. So they'll show if we do these things, if we invest in the downtown area in this way, then here's the direct benefit, here's the indirect benefit, here's the tax benefit from a county standpoint, from a state standpoint, from a local standpoint, here's the benefit of investment. So they do a really thorough analysis of the value of investment beyond just thinking about investment tools.
Thanks, Greg. So what does that final plan look like? Well, clearly it has a narrative guiding us through and what are our next steps and what do we do to activate this and make it happen. You know, it has a clear scope, which is agreed upon by everyone here in this room and everyone outside of this room. It has a strategy that makes sense. It's a strategy that we can execute. The team is very important. You know, we had a meeting in the charrette a couple of weeks ago, and we got the ability to sit down with, you know, folks like Dave and Dawn and learn so much on how to build so that things are going to work. You know, these are experts who know how to make things happen in Dover. And that's one of those things that really is a strong benefit coming from the stakeholder. Yes, I'm saying Dave knows how to make things happen, without a doubt, you know, and Dawn especially, you know, so we really learned that and bring that into that plan.
Former city manager?
That wasn't me, Dave. That was Greg. Those online.
That's what I heard. I heard
that wasn't John. So when you think about it, it truly is a team. And the team is not just the folks that we put up on this screen for us, but the team is all of us together, because that is the knowledge which is really going to transform things. And from that comes this plan. And the plan includes the strategies and the programs, the design, the zoning, all of the things that's going to make someone say, hey, this is a great place to invest in, whether you're talking about a developer or you're talking about an individual investing their time and their lives in here, or our anchors investing in downtown and not just saying, oh, yeah, there's a downtown over there. You know, having a truly college-activated city as well. Those are the types of things that are going to come out of this plan. And then what are the retail and amenity programs, right? I mean, everyone would love to have, you know, this fabulous downtown, but what works best here? One of the questions we had is, what can I buy downtown that I can't get on Amazon, right? If you just put that litmus test up there, because you're not going to out Amazon, but guess what? Amazon can't give you an experience. I mean, sure, you get the fun of seeing a truck pull up or something, but that's not the same as being in a really good place downtown where you're meeting someone, they know you, you walk in there, oh, John, I know what size you are, you know, that type of thing. That's an experience that you can't replace. So when we think about the amenities there, we need to be able to think about the experience that you create that can only be done here, that can't be done online.
Yeah, well, we talk about technology not being able to replace humanity. And so we're really focused on that because that is what people still strive, is this human connection, this ability to come together. And real estate can play a real role in that, so can how we put together infrastructure. But many times we create barriers to that. Some of them are artificial, some of them are intentional. What we're looking to do here is break down those barriers and bring people back together in a communal way.
Thanks, Greg. And just last slide is just kind of give you an idea of the timeline, how we went through our 4 stages, starting with listening, and then really digging into the discover part where we're learning and pulling in information. And then now we're in the ideate section where we're looking at all of the different things. We're listening to you. We're coming up with concepts. We're presenting the concepts to you, getting the feedback, and all of that is going to lead us to the final. Well, like Greg said, it's not truly final, but the presentation and recommendations, which are always going to continue to grow. Just as each one of us is a continuous learner in life, this plan should be continuously improving and getting better as well.
Yeah, we would call it a living document.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, hey, let me bring the mic to you.
Okay, yes. Hello, my name is Leandra Casson. I'm a professor at Delaware State University and a nonprofit business owner at Demco. And my question had to do with the economic analysis. I just wanted to see if you had any of our Delaware State University folks, particularly the University Center for Economic Development and International Trade, that has done economic analysis and feasibility studies and economic impact studies. And so I just wanted to offer them as well as the resource to be able to help with this particular plan.
It's terrific.
Okay, great. Yeah.
The answer is yes. We would love to help. We definitely would.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a definite yes.
Okay, good morning. So and I apologize if this was discussed when I stepped out of the room. So I just want to know about the input that you're getting from the local churches and the local community. So you have a great idea of what we want to see in this room happen downtown, but you have people that already live there. And we need to make sure that we're communicating well with them and getting their input too. And maybe they're not as forthcoming with their ideas, but if you get like their church members and their church elders involved, they could be that voice for them as well. So has that happened?
Yes, most definitely. As a matter of fact, Diane has set up some meetings for us with a couple of different churches. I had a personal emergency, which I had to cancel them for a week, and we pushed them back, but they're back on the burner, and we are definitely meeting with them. As a matter of fact, one of the things we're working on is all of the folks who we don't reach by the QR codes and the online surveys, right? And how do you reach those folks? You go to where they are. So we are definitely on board with that.
Yeah, we're big believers in that. Just in Philadelphia, we're working on 2 projects. One is with Zion Baptist Church, which is and their key community player, Reverend Leon Sullivan, who created the Sullivan Principles that led to the really change in apartheid in South Africa. We're working closely with his church and with the community. We're also working with a mosque in the other side of Philadelphia, in West Philadelphia, and so we understand the importance and the fabric of the community, and we work well within that spectrum. And so we would expect that we will reach out, we will listen, and we know that they're really on the ground. The reason why we do that is because these are the people on the ground that really understand what's going on, the heartbeat of the neighborhoods.
I wanted to say I do appreciate your question because I also represent IMA, which is our Interdenominational Ministers Alliance. I'm on the executive board. And what happened, one of the reasons why I'm here is because of Todd and Diane. They did come to our meeting that we had on Monday to be a part of this plan. And so I'm one of the representatives for that as well. And so we will be using the QR code, and we do have some ideas as well. So that's why I wanted to come and try to hear as much of the plan as I could so that then we could give more feedback.
Right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
That's great.
So I was wondering if you could share some of the results from the survey, and are they different from the stakeholder comments? How do they differ and how are they similar?
Go ahead.
I'm coming. Phil Donahue here.
They're very similar. They're very similar. There was also I think, a little bit more of an emphasis in terms of the safety aspect. On the survey. But they're very similar in terms of looking for more amenities. A lot of the results are the same, but just a few minor differences. And we're up to 246 responses so far, and we're getting ready to launch another push to get that out as well. So it's pretty consistent. And one other thing which I didn't mention has been the incredible willingness of people to help and get behind on this from every group, every single group, Bay Health, Del State, Air Force Base, community, the Biggs Museum. I mean, everyone is really on board with this process. So we definitely want to thank everyone for that support.
And as you heard, Diane and I went and met with the leaders of some local churches on Monday evening, and shared the story, shared what was going on. I think the energy in the room was really positive from the feedback that we got and the guests that we have in the room. And we handed out information with the QR codes that you guys have to pass out to their congregation. So I think we're going to get a significant participation response from them as well. Any other questions, comments, concerns? 17 churches, largely minority, represented in the interdenominational, and we met with their leadership.
Question is, what's the role of festivals, community events? Didn't really
Community
touch on
programming.
that in the presentation, but as an attractive feature, and how does downtown actually work with that? Because a lot of it gets shoved over to the green or the legislative mall area.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what is the role of events, festivals, et cetera? Part of our plan is really identifying the public realm, those public spaces that we think we should activate. What we want to do is have more activation spaces than what currently exists today. We think we've certainly, we're familiar with the green, we're familiar with the other places that you have, but we don't believe it's enough. And that some of the programming that should happen should be pop-up, some should be organized, some should be led by new people, new voices. We believe there needs to be more young musicians coming out, more young art festivals, and not in traditional places. That they don't have to be indoor, they need to be outdoor, they need to be something that's more organic. And so we're looking at building the space where folks feel that they can see themselves and see that space as a canvas where they can themselves be something and positive and express to the community in a way and bring their community in. And so some of that might start off small, but you'll find that it tends to grow. It grows when we let people know that they're welcome, but we have to create the space for people to feel that they're welcome, and we don't have all of them yet. So that's part of the programming is let's find the space, let's create the space, and let's create the programming that supports those spaces.
And we also we have been looking at several spaces to that, but we haven't taken it through all the way to the point where we can present publicly. So just to give you a couple of examples, we looked at the Memorial Park by the water. How do you activate that water area? It's beautiful, and I think when we came by last time, unfortunately, it had been after a lot of rains and it was really soaked and the ground was not in good shape. So we think, okay, how can we activate this given that particular fact? We also looked at, do we close Lockerman Street for events? Just even if it's temporarily, right? Put up blocks to really have a nice public space for people to be able to walk around safely. That's something else we're going to dig into and go deeper in. We also want to have additional meetings with Delaware State University to look at the Schwartz Center and see, really learn from them how they're activating that to have more events down there. So it is definitely on the table. We just have to look at, as Greg said, what are those correct spaces? Tina.
I have a comment from online. This is from Judy from the Chamber. She wanted to state that what she really likes about the plan is that it contains a finance component, which makes it more practical and possible.
That's great. And we don't know how you do this without a finance component. So I'm glad you said it, but we wouldn't, everything has to be tied to the dollar in what we're presenting. So that's something that's really important.
Yeah, I learned that first year in Mosaic. I always say, Greg, we could do blah, blah, blah. He'd look at me like, John, do the numbers work? I was like, oh, okay. Now I don't even bring it to him unless I've looked at the numbers first, right? Any more questions?
I just want to talk about Lockerman, for example, because there's been a lot of questions about whether we open or close Lockerman. What we're going to do is present a number of options for Lockerman, the possibility of what happens if Lockerman was completely closed, what happened if it stays exactly as it is, what happened if it went to one lane or one way. So Kinley Horn is really going to help us understand what the right movement of vehicles should be there. And we're just going to provide optionality to the community and let the community say, you know, we like A or B, we like just as it is right now, given the set of circumstances, but we just want you to have the best available information to make decisions on what you think makes sense.
So on that topic of activating downtown, in your opinion, what comes first? Is it developers? Is it entrepreneurs? Is it the state activate, or the city and government activating these public spaces? Do you have an opinion on that, and how do we bring more of that answer downtown?
Yeah, well, I certainly think a beer garden comes first. I think if nothing else. Talking. So that's what I would say. And the reason why I say that is because it's a destination space. So I think that's so important. The fact that you're doing that down here is crucial. It's important and it's valuable. So I would thank you for making that commitment downtown. I think it's going to be great. But our view is that they all have to happen simultaneously. But what sustains? So we can bring things here, but without more residential density, it's hard to sustain the momentum. But that will take a little longer to happen. There are things we can do now to activate spaces, and I think we should do them. But ultimately, you have to bring more people down here that when they get up in the morning and they walk downstairs on the sidewalks, they live there, right? They're there and they're active and they're using it. So the residential density is the sustaining piece. But things that you're doing, I think, can happen immediately to really start getting the momentum going.
I have one point that I just want to point out to you, both in regards to the housing density. Delaware State Housing Authority, I did not see them on the stakeholders list, and they have a lot of new programs, especially with, they used to be identified with more of a lower income. They're trending with a lot of new programs for mortgage, especially if you're thinking about doing some condos. I know you've talked about,
Yep.
But they are trying to do some mortgage programs. So I just wanted to
Great.
point out.
So we should get them on the list.
Yes,
Yeah, and
that's a
have a
major
conversation.
one, just with all the new stuff that's
Great.
coming out.
Great. Thank you. Yes. One and then two.
I just have a suggestion, and it goes back to meeting people where they are. There are people who rent in downtown Dover now. I'm not sure that we've reached them with the QR code, but I do know that the folks who live above the old Sears building, the company that manages that place is Capital Property Management. They happen to be in Treadway Towers, which is on the east end of Lockerman. We may be able to reach them if we have not already reached them through the property manager. Capital Property Management, they manage properties all around Dover. So I think might be a good idea to reach out to them so that we can get to those residents, because they're living on Lockerman and elsewhere very close by. And then I don't know who manages the folks that are above the pharmacy, but I mean, I just wonder, I think they have a voice that should be heard. East Coast? Okay.
You need a mic.
Yeah, we agree. It definitely, we want to hear from
You
them.
want to talk? Yeah, you have to talk in the mic.
Yes, I think safety is one of the things that you said everybody is concerned about. And we know that it's perception as well as reality. If it's perception, it is reality, because people are frightened that they're not coming out. Last night, the city council is discussing adding 5 additional police officers. When you add 5 additional police officers, that adds up to about $200,000 per officer for everything it costs, pension and the like. And it has to be paid for. So we are facing a very severe budget deficit. People that we picked up before on grants, now we have to pay for those 5 officers that we've gotten for community. So we're going into this budget period with tremendous amount of deficit that we have to cover. So we may have to go back to getting that money from other sources that the taxpayers are not going to be able to pay for, because each one of those officers are going to wind up costing us about 1.5 cents per on the tax dollar, and we're facing huge deficits with power. The city has a remarkable record of low cost on electricity, and now we were told last night instead of costing us $560 million in purchase, it's going to be $90 million or $95 million that we're going to have to go back to the public and say, you're going to have to pay this because we can't absorb all of that. So ingenuity is going to be played. We want the officers, we want that special area where they will be able, not in a static substation, but be able to have a flying squad to be able to make that area safer, because it's important to everything that you're doing and getting people back downtown, or getting downtown when those houses are built. I regurgitate everything you say because I've seen it before when the Rouse Company came into to Baltimore Harbor and transferred that, the renaissance of it and how it happened. It's there. I believe in everything you're doing, and I love the fact that the hook for me was you're bringing the development. You're bringing it. You're looking for those pockets of money. The one frustration I have is the city has a smart lighting system, $650,000 for just the downtown area. We've had to put off, because of the cost, the $3 million project for the rest of the city. But $650,000 that has been in place for quite some time, except for the software that the company has and wants to charge us for on a monthly basis, hasn't been there. That lighting system is going to be a safety factor because they can bring it up. It also saves us money because it's LED lighting. So all of that is in place, waiting for you guys to come in. And I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm on my knees. I have holes in my pants that maybe in June, and I keep Diane informed, maybe in June, we're going to get that lighting system. I want the city council there to be able to be the time when that light goes on. And just as Roosevelt did when he had the dam out in Nevada, when that happens, I want that light to go on, because that is going to be a factor psychologically and reality that the police will have a better chance of catching the vermin that run when that happens. So it's happening. We know it. I want the public to feel we know it. And now we have to find out how to pay for it if we add these additional 5 officers over the 5 officers that we already put in place to bring our strength up to 106. If we go to 109, this is what's going to happen. But that's going to be a dedicated force downtown, and it may have to be paid for by the businesses down there. And the new businesses that you guys are going to be bringing in, because they didn't know about that, but we had this once before, what have you. That's what we're counting on. Back to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We just wanted to address Carla's point with colonial management and capital for the spaces above the old Sears building and the Milford Housing Development Corporation that has the apartments above Baird. It has gone digitally to them, but I think a good point would be to take our mobile boards and put them in the complex community spaces, and so we take note of that. I just wanted to let you know that we'll make sure we get those boards there.
Thanks, Tina. Well, if no one has any further questions, we thank you for your time, and if you need us, there's our contact information. Anytime, feel free to send us a note and let us know how we can help.
Thank you. So I think we all learned a lot. If you haven't been participating as much as I have, and Diane and some of the others, I think we learned a lot today. Thank you guys for coming down here and doing what you did today. They'll be doing this again in the future at the next major phase of everything. So I know everybody has to get to work. We had a later meeting start time because of the new location. So the video will be posted online on our website of the presentation that we just heard today. So it will be out there for the public. If anybody wants to see it that was not able to participate today, you can direct them there. And may I have a motion to adjourn? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Enjoy your week. Go forth and prosper, and I will see you next time. Thank you.